Hello, how's it going, everyone? So not too long ago, someone left a comment on one of my videos saying, hey, can you do a video talking about kind of the differences between the M240i and the M2? Perfect, this video is right up my alley. I used to actually own an M240i for 2 years before I traded in for an M2, a dual clutch M2. I totaled that car and got a manual M2. So I'm like, perfect, I've experienced pretty much both of the base M2s, and I've experienced an M240i for 2 years, so perfect opportunity to make this video. Now obviously I don't have the M240i anymore. That car is long gone, traded in, but I can still talk about it. All right, so let's talk about the two cars. So I'm gonna start off by talking about the M240i, and then I'm gonna get into this car, which is the M2. So the M240i, fantastic car. So I owned a 2017 M240i. I had the X-Drive one, so it's not exactly an apples to apples comparison, but it's good enough for the purpose of kind of comparing the differences with the cars. When talking about the M240i, you have to look at it from the perspective of it is a 2 Series. Some people say it's an M-Lite, as they call it, so it's not a full M car, but it's kind of getting there. And yes, from a very valid perspective, that is the case. It is, the M240i is pretty much a light version of the M2. Like 90% of the performance is there. It is an absolute phenomenal car. Now on paper, it had 335 horsepower, while the M2 has, what does it have, 365 horsepower? Really, when you put them like in a straight line, they're pretty neck and neck. One has less power, but it'll put it down better. The other has more power, but it's all to the rear wheel. So there's a little bit of pro and con there, but if you get a rear wheel versus rear wheel, this car is gonna be a little bit better. Overall, it's pretty negligible. Like the way the B58 puts down power is just insane. Again, falls in the category of 2 Series though. You have to look at it from the perspective of the M240i is the best 2 Series you can buy without getting into the M2. Its purpose is really to be a kind of entry-level luxury cruiser. It's not intended to be a full-on sports car, whereas this, depending on how you define sports car, you may not even consider it a sports car, but for all intents and purposes, the M2 is a sports car. The M240i really is not intended to be one. It's intended to be a kind of luxury car that has that performance behind it. As far as like entry-level BMWs go, it feels more like a GT style car that's meant for those kind of longer drives where you need a little bit of performance, rather than a car like the M2 that's really great on these back roads, but I wouldn't really want to drive this for 2-3 hours on a highway in a straight line going, 80-90 miles an hour. Now part of that too, I think, is also dependent on what transmission you get. One of the perks to owning the ZF8 in the M240i was the 7th and 8th gear, the kind of overdrive gears for the highway. So it kind of really helps solidify it as more of a luxury cruiser. Obviously, if you get the 6-speed manual, it's a little different. And if you have the DCT, there's the 7th gear, which is the kind of single overdrive gear. The M240i, you can cruise at 90 miles an hour on the highway in 8th gear, and it's just so quiet, it's so peaceful, it's relaxing. But then when you need to put your foot down, the power is all gonna be there. So it's definitely more of like a GT daily luxury cruiser. The M2 is definitely not. Now going a little bit back to the aesthetics of the M240i, it looks like a 2 Series. It doesn't look like anything special. I think that's also a big point that has to be made when comparing these two cars, is the looks and kind of the feel that you get with the cars. So the 2 Series, it doesn't turn heads. It's a really good looking car, well proportioned in my opinion, but compared to the M2, it just doesn't look as good, and I think that is a very big point when comparing them. The M2, at least if you get it in this color that I have mine in, the Long Beach blue, I think falls a bit more into the category of sports cars and exotics, from the perspective of it's gonna turn a couple of heads. People are gonna say, hey, what is that? People are gonna say, oh, that's a nice car, I really like that. You get a lot more interaction and comments on the M2 just from a, whoa, look at that, that looks really cool, what is that perspective. Whereas the M240i is a bit more dull and the people that are gonna compliment it and ask you questions about it are the people that know exactly what that car is. People ask questions, people compliment this car, people like this car. Now, you should never buy a car just to please other people. Like, you should never buy a car because someone else is gonna like it, someone else is gonna think it's cool. But I think it definitely falls more into that category of like exotics and sports cars, where it turns some heads, it gets people saying, whoa, that's really cool. The M240i doesn't give you that. And by no stretch am I saying that the M2 is an exotic car. And like I said, depending on how you define a sports car, you may not even categorize this as a sports car, but it falls into that category of like, you look at it and you know it's something special. You know it's not a normal car. And I think that is really the big difference between the M2 and the M240i. I think the M2 has a bit more flaws. Like, it has the N55 engine, which is a little older now compared to the B58. It's not as good of an engine in my opinion. I think it's fantastic from the character it gives in the sound. Like, when you compare the sound of the M2 to the M240i, they just don't compare, like, at all. Even with an exhaust, compared to this car's stock, the M2 is still louder. It still sounds better, even when my M240i had an exhaust on it. From that perspective of like sound, the M2 just blows the M240i out of the water, like hands down. But I think to the point of the M2 and kind of the sounds and that kind of special head turning quality of the M2, I think the M2 is a more special car. Like I said, it turns heads, people ask questions, people think it's really cool, it sounds incredible, and it falls more into that exotic category of, you have a kind of really cool color car if you get it in the blue, you have a fast car, it's a special little car. Like, this, it's hard to really explain what I mean. Like, it has character, it's a special little package, where the M240i is just kind of a GT cruising luxury 2 series, and I think that's really the big difference. Yes, if you put them side by side, they can compete with each other pretty well. Like the M240i, it will hold its own against an M2 very easily. But that special little aspect of it, it's just that it's that little special something that'll inch it just above the M240i. So I think if you're going for just a really good car that has like hardly any problems, it's robust, it's bulletproof as hell, the M240i is an incredible car, especially for the money. For the money, fantastic, phenomenal car. Like, there's nothing else I can say. It's a great car, the M240i. But I still traded it in for an M2, and I have no regrets, because it has that little bit of something, that little special ingredient, that character, that loudness, that head turning, whoa, look at that thing, it sounds so cool, it looks cool, what is it? You know, I think that quality outdoes everything that the M240i has to offer. Honestly, if you want that little special something, if you want a more special car, add the extra couple grand and get yourself an M2. Yes, you're buying an older engine. Yes, it's less tunable. It's not going to be as robust as the B58 engine, but I don't think that matters. I genuinely don't believe that the benefit of the B58 really out-trumps the whole aspect of what the M2 is. Now, I know all the B58 fanboys out there are gonna hate on that idea and say, oh, the B58 is king, it's the best engine, then you got the S58, yada yada yada. I'm sorry, the M2 just wins over the M240i. Like, I'm sorry to say, but it does. So yeah, let me know what your thoughts are. Like, what is your opinion on the M240i versus the M2? I've owned the M240i for like 2 years, and I have to give it marks where it deserves them. Like, it's a fantastic, phenomenal car, it really is, but it's not special. Like I've said so many times to people that have said, oh, why'd you trade the B58 for the N55? And it's like, because I really don't care. Like, this car is more special. Like, I'm sorry, your M240i is a good car, but it's not special. It doesn't turn heads. You don't have the same feeling driving it through a valley that you do an M2. Like the M2, you're rolling through the gears through the valley, the sound of that exhaust bouncing off the rocks and stuff, like you can't beat that. You can't get that with an M240i. Like, I'm sorry. Not to hate on the M240i. Like I said, it's a phenomenal car. I've owned one for 2 years, but I traded it in for an M2, and when I totaled the first M2, I bought another M2. Like, it's just, like the M2, it's special. It has character, and I think when you compare them ultimately, that is the difference between the M240i and the M2. On paper, you can compare them all you want, but I can really attest and give you my opinion on the feeling you get when you drive the cars. That's kind of my perspective with it. Like, the feeling of one car versus the other is just different. They just don't compare. Let me know what you guys think about the M240i, the M2, and tell me your thoughts. Leave me a comment. And yeah, if you liked the video, leave me a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos, hit that subscribe button, and it's gonna be all for now. So thank you so much for watching. Until next time.